So we're going to talk about the menstrual cycle, and in this short video it's just going to be an overview of the menstrual cycle before we delve into certain areas a bit deeper in other videos. So to begin with, the general menstrual cycle lasts 28 days, so it starts at the first day of your period, and then it obviously carries on through, and then it stops again as the first day of your period. So the average cycle is 28 days, however this can vary person to person, and as it varies the length of time varies. So use this image here, these lines are all the same but they look different. When we look at a menstrual cycle, we tend to look at 28 days cycle, but you need to be aware that they will do vary from person to person. So the lengths of each phase, the length of the whole thing, and the effects in each phase can vary person to person. It's important to know how it affects you to then be able to make educated choices on how to manage and kind of consider those phases in regard to your general health, training, exercise, and mindset, which we're all going to go into in further videos. So different cravings. So when I talk about cravings, it could be the choices of food, the amount of food, the time, the type, all these things can come into it. So again, if you can highlight and identify what are your general cravings and your general behaviours around each phase of your cycle, it can really help to manage it and make better choices around it to help keep you working towards your goals and not get derailed. So it's important that you get to know your cycle. Like I've said, there are apps. So this app I've got a picture up here is called Clue, and you just track it, your menstrual cycle. So you track when your period starts, when your period ends, and then it kind of tells you when it's coming around, and then you can kind of get to know, okay, around day 20 I start to feel like this, around day 28 I feel like that, around day 12 I feel like, and you get to know how you feel. And there's a saying that I like to always think about, like when we talk about calories and steps and workouts, what gets measured gets managed. So once you know, you measure your calories going in, you measure your steps that you do, you measure the workouts that you do, you can then manage it to improve it. So increase your steps, decrease your calories, improve your workouts by doing that. If we take that and put it into your period, you're measuring the times and the feelings of how things are going, and then you can manage it better to suit you. There are other apps as well. I think Fitbit has a section in there that does it. I think Garmin does as well. But Clue is a separate app that if you don't have either of those devices, you can use that. So phases of the menstrual cycle. So here is kind of the image that we will use in most of the videos talking about menstrual cycle. I just find it very clear and easy to use. It's got the hormones in it, which we'll discuss later, but also different phases and what goes into each one. So we've got the menstruation phase, which is the red circle at the bottom. So this is the start of your period here. So periods generally, they should last 4 to 6 days, but on average around 5, but it can last longer, up to 8 days in some people. If your period is longer than 28 days, that could be a sign of PCOS. So if you do feel like your period lasts longer than 28 days, kind of consistently, then you should maybe talk to the doctor and see if you can do any more tests around around that. Cool. We have the follicular phase, which starts from day 1 to day 14. So that encompasses the period section, but it's the first 2 weeks of the cycle. Then have ovulation, which is right in the middle, so when you're most fertile to create a baby. And then, as you can see, this is where your hormones kind of 3 out of 4 kind of spike the most in this area in kind of preparation for ovulation, and we'll discuss that later and why that's important and how it affects you. And then the last bit we have is the luteal phase, which is after your ovulation and before your period starts again. So that's about 2 weeks, and again your hormones change there, which we're going to discuss soon. So there are 4 phases to your menstrual cycle, and they all have different kind of things they'll cause different things to happen, and we're going to discuss it. But it's important to know each section, and each one will affect not only how you should think about eating, training. They'll affect your mindset and your kind of concentration, but also your weight. So if you measure your weight, say for 8 weeks, and you get 8 measurements, you've only actually got 2 measurements that will match together. So week 1 will match week 1 of the second month. Week 2 will match week 2 of the second month. So it's hard to judge. So week 1 will not match week 3 because you're in a different phase of your cycle. There's different things going on, different hormones at play, and so it's important not to measure week 1 with week 1. Once you realise that and you see that and you start to see a cycle in that, again, it helps you to understand that your weight changes naturally due to body kind of physical actions that happen within your body that you can't control. So it just helps with that understanding of weight fluctuation. Hormones of the menstrual cycle. So is that image again. So first of all, we have the follicle stimulating hormone. So it's this yellow one here. It's quite a low kind of spike. This is obviously where it goes the highest just before ovulation, like I said. We have estrogen, which spiked mostly at quite high compared to the rest of it before ovulation. This is kind of going to cause you, I'll talk about all of it. It's going to cause you to feel you'll most likely be stronger at the beginning of ovulation, so around day 12 to 14 of your cycle, thanks to these hormones increasing here. So this is when you feel stronger in the gym, so you'll probably be better off doing your heavier lifts, your more complicated lifts, going for PBs if you're running, and doing intense exercise, because this is when you're at your kind of peak level of performance. You'll probably also feel like you're most horny at this part of the month as well, which makes sense because as ovulation is coming around, it makes sense for your body to kind of want to engage in sex around that time to produce an egg. So that may be why. Not everyone is the same. Like I said, everyone's cycle is different, but this is generally the time where you would most likely feel stronger, fitter, more motivated, more energetic, and yeah, more horny. So be aware of that. If you're trying to do, we'll discuss it later when we do the training webinar. If you're trying to do your heavy lifts here, it's just not a good time to do it, and we'll discuss why. But yeah. So yeah, we have progesterone, which is always hard to say, but it stays quite level most of the time. As it peaks here, this is kind of the hormone that makes you feel a bit shit before your period starts. And this is, like I said, you don't really want to be trying to do the harder lifts, the complicated lifts, the difficult things, because it does make you generally feel a bit worse off than a few weeks before. So yeah, being aware of these hormones, how they look. If I go back a bit so you can see it. So if you'd be aware of how they look across the month, when they rise, when they fall, when one takes precedent over others, like the progesterone here is way above any of the other 3. That's obviously going to have a huge impact on how you feel, whereas down here it's low. So we can kind of judge how we're going to feel thanks to each hormone. If we understand how they work and what impact they have on us, it allows us to then kind of understand why we're feeling the way we're feeling, why the gym isn't going the way we want to go, why our diet isn't as easy as it once was. It just helps us to understand that and make better choices. So skip back through. Cool, and that's the end of the video for this one. But like I said, we're going to go into how your menstrual cycle will affect your diet, how it will affect your training, and how it will affect your general mindset and psychology around each of those, to help you understand how you can manage it better and navigate through difficult parts of the cycle.